My wedding ring, which I designed myself, has the Major League Baseball logo on it. I wanted my wife to know that in my heart she ranks right up there close to baseball.
He's a big baseball fan, there's no debate there. He's also one of the most well-read columnists in the nation. And whether you agree or disagree with his political philosophy, George Will has a very interesting assessment about the current state of affairs in the U.S. Speaking to a group of leaders from Utah cities and towns, Will revealed startling statistics and interesting trends that paint a picture of the present state of the national well-being, if you want to call it that.
63% of the country says the country is on the wrong track. 68% of Americans say they know personally someone who is unemployed. Only 27% of the country, only 27% expect the economy to get better next year. Americans are earning less and are worth less than they were 4 years ago. The average family's net worth in this country is 40% below what it was 5 years ago. The recent job numbers were appalling.
It's a pretty dismal assessment when you hear the numbers. Will calls the situation the most predictable crisis in our country.
It's tempting to say that if the Republican Party can't win in this environment, it has to get out of politics, go into an entire another line of work.
Will says whomever wins the White House will confront all this.
We have to look at this crisis that's looming and say, yikes, what are some tough choices we can make now so that we're not faced with impossible choices down the road?
Will's knowledge and grasp of the numbers is impressive. He takes those figures further, looking at how they will affect our future. For example, he looks at the aging majority in America and its impact on the economy.
Now, I'm going to talk a lot about the elderly. I am not against the elderly. I am elderly. I can prove it. 6 years ago, when I turned 65, the government sent me this lovely Medicare card. I showed it to my doctor, said, "That's wonderful, George, now we'll send your bills to your children."
Will follows the numbers of retired Americans versus working Americans since 1942, when there were 42 workers for every one retiree. Today, there are 3.1 workers for every retiree. And by the time baby boomers have retired, Will says there will be 2 workers for 1 retiree.
The worry that Americans have or should have is that we are on the verge of a death spiral of the entitlement welfare state.
Add subsidized health care to the picture, and Will says you have a problem politically impossible to fix. He calls it the 12-cent problem. That's the portion of every health care dollar paid for by the person receiving health care. He says there's a basic rule of life.
No one washes a rental car. You take care of what you own. Therefore, he said, give people ownership of their health care dollars.
And love him or hate him, agree or disagree, his facts are compelling.
I love his approach because he really goes deep into history and explains it in a nice way as to why his particular philosophy should be the one that's governing.
I don't agree with him. He's too conservative for me, but I think he's very. You have to admire somebody with that intelligence.
Pessimism has its pleasures. You're right most of the time, and you're delighted when you're wrong.
This self-avowed gloomy conservative acknowledges his pessimism, but injects a healthy dose of hope into the mix.
Things are going to get better, and I'll tell you why. First, a little perspective. We are not Bangladesh. We are a rich, educated, industrious country. We can get better by choosing to get better. Winston Churchill, who loved our country as much as he loved his American mother, said the American people invariably choose the right thing after they have exhausted all the alternatives.
And that point, among both liberals and conservatives, was agreed upon.
Well, he tried to make me in the beginning feel like all was lost because he's such a pessimist, but his humor and his quoting of people that I like and understand kind of made me rejoice, and I think there is hope.
Our economy and society is too strong and too resilient for us to be pessimistic about the future.
The key to George Will that I've always so appreciated is that he can serve up a whole dose of tough stuff to swallow, but leave you hopeful, leave you with the feeling that we're America. And yeah, there are some real challenges, but we have the wherewithal, we have the intellect, we have the goodness, we have the grace to ultimately pull ourselves out.
If we make better choices, things get better in a hurry.
For the Utah League of Cities and Towns, I'm Susan Wood.